Hello, hello, hello. How are you guys doing this evening? It is currently 9:40 p.m. on this late summer evening, this late summer Monday evening going into Tuesday. And it is currently 71 degrees outside, but there's a cool breeze. Kind of feels like a fall evening outside. It's nice. And I am gonna vlog for about 50 minutes, and then I'm gonna pick up Tanya Jean. I told her I would pick her up at 10:30 for a fountain pop so that we can catch up and talk and all kinds of stuff. And Alex and I were just hanging out in the bedroom. He had ordered all this stuff from this website that he had seen on Instagram. He had ordered like a couple shirts and a hat and stuff, and he was like really upset because, well, not really upset, but he was frustrated because it was very much like, have you seen those memes of like, this is what I ordered and this is what I got? I mean, everything was like that. So he emailed the website, because they sent him wrong sizes for stuff too. Like he requested a large and they sent him a medium. And it's just like nothing looks like anything that it's supposed to look like. And I mean, it's really exactly like that meme, you know, or those memes that you see like that, where it shows like the dress that you see online and then what you actually get in person, you know? So he reached out to them, and because I guess to send it back would be too expensive for like shipping and handling, and they didn't like include like return shipping. And so he was like, you know, like, I don't want this stuff, like, and I don't know how to like return it. And they said, well, we'll give you like half of your money back if you keep it. So he's like, I guess I'm gonna keep it and try to do the best that I can. And there was like one sweater in there that was kind of, I mean, it wasn't horrible. And he got a hat that has like, you know, those hats that they're like fedoras they wear to music festivals and stuff. He got this stuff to wear to this music festival this weekend. I think that's why he's kind of frustrated. And the fedora is okay, but it had like this gold thing on there that like in the picture, I guess, I don't know, but like it looks very costumey. And then there was a shirt that's like kind of a lacy see-through shirt, and they sent him a medium instead of a large, and he's like, I don't even think a large would have fit me, but the medium like doesn't fit him at all. And so he was kind of laughing about that. But so that was that, and he worked today, and I filmed a bunch of videos. I posted videos on all of my channels today. I had the room tour from the Cosmopolitan, because some people had asked for like a room tour, so I filmed a room tour before we left, like the day before we left, and then I posted that today over there. Yeah, and that was kind of my day. I went and picked up Boo and Tucker, and they were like so tired when I picked them up. They just like came out, they were just kind of looking at me, and I was like, hey guys. And then when I got them home, they got like real excited. They were like super excited to be home. So they were just like, right now they're like half asleep. They're like on the pillows on the bed, like just hanging out, and they're so tired. And so that was kind of my day. Found out that a friend of ours passed away. We're not entirely sure what happened or the specifics of it. It's really sad. So it's the ex-husband of one of our very dear friends. And when Alex and I got together, there was like 4 couples that we used to all like, that they worked together, and then the partners. And so this was one of the couples that Alex worked with her. And it was her husband, well, it was her boyfriend at the time. I think they actually met after Alex and I got together, and then they started dating, and then they got married, and we were actually in their wedding, like in their wedding. And he was like such a nice guy. And this is where I talk about like, and we really still don't know the conditions of what happened with him, like how he passed away. But this is where I talk about like alcoholics not being bad people getting good, but we're sick people getting well. He was like pretty hardcore alcoholic, and it was something that I progressively started seeing over time. But it was like kind of in ways that you would almost kind of not excuse it, but that you wouldn't see it maybe unless you were looking for it. And I guess maybe I just wasn't even looking for it at first. Like, I can remember he was really into like football. And so I can remember like we went over to their house for like, they had a bunch of people over to watch like a football game, and before we even got there, like, he was just completely wasted, and he was like on the couch being belligerent. He was like passing out and then coming to, and then passing out, and I don't know why I remember that. And it was just really sad, and she was really affected by a lot of it. And I remember there had been a situation where he had fallen down a flight of stairs, like concrete stairs, and he ended up in the hospital. And so she asked that we come there and talk, like I would come there and talk to him and, you know, share my story. And he knew I was sober, but kind of, you know, share my story and talk to him. And so I did. And he actually talked to another friend of mine as well. And I was really hopeful, you know, that maybe he would get sober. And, you know, we're program of attraction. Like, we don't, you know, tell people what they have to do. We just share our story. And if somebody wants help, you know, it's like, hey, here I am. You have to ask for help. And he really never reached out to me much about it again. And he just was a really nice guy, really good guy. But the drinking, and I don't know that that's how he passed, but he was young. I mean, he was in his, like, I think he was his late 30s. And, but anyway, it eventually led to them getting divorced. And I haven't talked to him. It's been probably, well, the last time I talked to him, he reached out to me because he wanted to talk to her. And she has him blocked on all social media. And he had moved far away from here. And so he was like trying to get in touch with her. And I don't really even remember what I said, but I think I just was like, hey, like, I'm not, I mean, I told her that he had reached out to me, you know, and she was like, I don't want anything to do with him. And there was just a lot, but I just was like, hey, I really don't want to get in the middle of this. And, you know, like, she doesn't want to talk to you right now. So, and he had reached out to Alex as well. And he had reached out to like a couple of the other, like the husbands that were in like the group. Because we were all friendly. I just remember we used to go like sing karaoke. Well, I didn't sing karaoke, but they'd all sing karaoke. And there was a bar we used to go to on Wednesday nights. I can't remember what the bar is called. It's where they did the big like St. Patrick's Day thing. There was a 10th Moe's in Noblesville. We used to go there, and all of us, and a friend of ours who was interesting because this other guy, before we found this out, that was like part of that group, he was like texting us today too because he had watched our Q&A, which is so weird to me, like when friends of ours like watch, like randomly, like just some random friend that I haven't talked to for a while or whatever, if I see them, they'll be like, oh, I watch your videos. I'm like, you do? And they're like, yeah, it just is, I don't know why it's crazy to me. So anyway, he reached out to us and he was like, just saying really nice things about the Q&A that Alex and I did together. And so he was part of that group too. It's crazy. It's weird to think he's gone. It makes me really sad, you know? And it's so crazy that just short amount of time, you know, that stuff happens. It's like, without getting into specifics, I've had some very sad things happen to sober friends of mine since I've been gone, like just in a week, you know? And if you don't believe in the power of addiction and the power of the disease of addiction, you know, it's like things can change like that, you know, in a dime. And it's like 1 second, you know, everything's going great like that. The next second, everything's not going great. And I think when you've been sober for a long time, to some degree, you don't take it for granted, but I think you, okay, let me backtrack. You don't take it for granted, but I think unless you're like actively working, well, for me, unless I'm actively working a program, actively talking to my sponsor, actively around friends of mine that are sober and going to meetings and talking about it, it's like you become complacent in your thinking about addiction, if that makes sense. Almost kind of like it doesn't affect me anymore, and then it can just like get you out of nowhere, you know? And, you know, there was a couple years ago that my sponsor at the time, God, now, okay, so I've had my sponsor now for like 4+ years, something like that. I don't even know how long she's been my sponsor. I wish I would have written down the date when I asked her, but anyway. So it would have been 2 years before that, because I started going to different meetings. A friend of mine, a very dear friend of mine, he was like one of the only other gay guys that I knew, because the majority of the gay guys that I know in Indianapolis that are sober go to all gay meetings. And, I mean, they'll go to like they're called mixed meetings. They'll go maybe to a mixed meeting every once in a while, but, I have never done that. So that's a whole other conversation. I would though, I've decided that like so for a long time, I really fervently believed in what was called singularity of purpose, okay? And singularity of purpose states that we're all here because of this one reason, right? So for me to go to a meeting that's specifically this or specifically that, you know, I don't know. I always went to meetings where it was men, women, gay, straight, whatever, you know? That being said, I have so many friends of mine that have benefited greatly from going to an all-women's meeting. Like, there's an all-women's meeting here in Indianapolis on Saturday mornings that is really well known. And I think my sponsor, like, she knows a couple women that go to that meeting. Anyway, it just is really a well-known meeting, and I've heard fantastic things about it, and I've been kind of jealous at times that I can't go because I've just heard such great things about it. And the gay community here that's in recovery, they're really supportive of each other and stuff, and you know, it's always this thing for me where I feel like I'm on the outside looking in, and so for me at 26+ years to step in and be like, hey guys, I'm here, is uncomfortable for me. And not that they wouldn't be accepting with open arms, because I think they would, but it's just real uncomfortable for me, you know, with my social anxiety and stuff. Many of them I know from going out and through Alex and just having known people in the gay community for years and years and years, you know. I said a name by accident. Several years ago, I had a very dear friend of mine that passed away, and he went to both meetings. He went to like mixed meetings, and he also regular meetings, and he also went to gay meetings. And at his funeral, when I went, like, people knew that he and I were really close friends, and so many people from gay meetings came up to me and were just like, we know how much he meant to you, we know how much you meant to him, you know, we would love to have your experience, strength, and hope if you ever want to come. I mean, they were very, very welcoming. I wish I would have started going then, because just to have a community of other guys, you know, that are gay, that are sober, I think would have been nice. One of the things I have talked about with Alex and my sponsor and everybody is that when we get a place in Florida, I'm going to start going to gay meetings down there. I don't know. My sponsor's always said that she would go with me to gay meetings here if I wanted to start going. I don't know why it's not comfortable for me. I just like I let my social anxiety stand in the way sometimes of stuff. They're very close-knit. That's the other thing. I wouldn't say cliquey, but they're very close-knit. Like, they're very good, like, they're all good friends, and they all go do a lot of stuff together and travel together and go to dinner. I mean, I see their pictures online and stuff like that. And I just don't know that how comfortable I feel walking into that. But anyway, so previous to that, my other sponsor that I'd had for a long time, he thought it would be good for me to go to some new meetings that I had never gone to before, and just kind of like go there, and people wouldn't know if I had had any amount of time or if I was a newcomer. And he was like, you know, it'd be good for you to be like, and how newcomers see things, you know. And so one of my friends, a very dear friend of mine, not the one that passed away, a different one, who I don't believe he is sober today, but I don't know. He asked me if I wanted to go to this candlelight meeting. So I did. And he did not continue going, but I continued to go to the candlelight meetings. And in fact, at that time, I was going to my home group on Tuesday, and then I was going to 5 meetings a week that were all candlelights. And I was like, I loved the candlelight meetings. Candlelight meetings are late at night, and they have like candles. Some places real candles, other places like fake candles. The place I was going to were real candles at that time. And I met my new sponsor, who I got there. Well, both sponsors I actually met there, because I heard my sponsor now, she gave a lead, which is when you tell your story, at that one of those meetings. It was that meeting became my kind of my home group for a while, the Sunday night group that I went to. And once a month they would have somebody come in and give a lead, and she gave her lead, and I already knew her, but what she shared at that time was like what I really needed to hear. She was talking about like, well, it doesn't matter, but she really shared some stuff that I needed to hear at that time. And so she and I started kind of talking a lot, and I just was like, that's when I kind of like got in the idea of, I was talking to my counselor and like, what do you think about me having a woman sponsor? And because I had always believed that men sponsor men and women sponsor women. The pamphlets tell us that gay men can have women sponsors and lesbians can have men sponsors, but that's what I had always been taught, was that men sponsor men and women sponsor women. So I had never thought about having a woman sponsor, but at the same time, I had never had a sponsor that I felt like, I had always had fantastic sponsors that really worked the steps with me and took me on the journey of recovery and worked with me through the steps and stuff. But I had, never taught me about recovery and whatever, but I never had a sponsor that like we would just go out to have lunch on a regular basis, or just call about just random stuff and whatever. And all of my female friends had that. All of my male friends, well, both my male and female friends had that. It was like all of my male friends, like they would go golfing with their sponsors, or double dates with their wives, or out to lunch. And my female friends, they all went shopping with their sponsors, or just hung out, or went traveling with their sponsors. And I never had that, and it was like, I just felt like there was something that was missing from that. And so I decided that I was going to get a female sponsor, which is why I did. But one of the things I learned by going to those other meetings was that there were a lot of people at those candlelight meetings that I was going to that they were considered on some levels, like some of the meetings, they were considered what we call Skid Row meetings, meaning that like the majority of the people that are coming are homeless. And like one of the meetings that I went to was in a recovery homeless shelter, and like people came there just because it was a free cup of coffee, and there was nowhere else they could get a free cup of coffee, so they would come to that meeting just for that, or to sit inside in the winter storm for an hour and a half or whatever. And it was always, the shelter was always full. It was like a halfway house for people in recovery that were homeless, and it still exists. It's really, actually Alex's friend Jason, who passed away, he was on the board of it. And so when Alex's friends, they raised money after Jason passed away, his friend that died in the tragic car accident. They raised money to donate to that homeless shelter in Jason's name through his memorial service. They had like DJs played and stuff. It was very cool. And the money that they raised was for the recovery center homeless shelter. Actually, he took us to, I forgot about this until right now. We went to like this dinner that he took us to, and he bought a table, and it was a fundraiser for that recovery center. And Alex and I went, and that was when he was still with his girlfriend, and he and his girlfriend went, and that was really fun. It was really nice too. So anyway, one of the things I learned by going to those meetings, because I felt like I was maybe like I said, it's easy to be complacent, right? And I think that I was at that time surrounding myself with people that have been complacent, or we just maybe, I don't know, not necessarily took our recovery for granted, but it just was like we didn't think about, I just really didn't think on a daily basis about going back out, you know. And one of the things that I learned, and I don't know if they did or not, but it wasn't like we were talking about that, you know. It wasn't like we were talking about we're only like, you know, right away from a drink. And that was one of the things that I learned, was how close we are to the next drink, I think, or the next drug, you know. And then also during that period was when I had two very close friends of mine that had double-digit years of sobriety go back out. I mean, one of my friends had over 20 years of sobriety and went back out. Her kids had never known her. Two of her kids had never known her not to be sober. And it just broke my heart. And still breaks my heart. Still out there, both of them. And it's hard, you know. But I'm so grateful that for my friend that did take me there to those meetings, because those meetings really changed my life. And I just started seeing things from a new perspective. I don't know. I can remember going there in the winter. I actually got caught in a winter storm one night. I vlogged that. I like went in and it was like fine outside, and while we were inside there had been like an ice storm, and we came out, and then like I was stuck on the interstate for like 5 hours. It was like on a Sunday night, I think, after that meeting. But I can remember like it snowing and me going to that meeting, and Alex was so supportive, because, you know, we would like hang out and do dinner or whatever, and then I would go to that meeting, whatever meeting it was. They were usually at 9:30 or 10:30, usually at 10:30. And, you know, I would drive over there. It was like 20 minutes from our house, 25 minutes. And I would drive over there, you know, many times in the winter, in the storm, like snowstorms or snow. And I would be inside, and it was so like peaceful and serene, just in the darkness, because they would turn off the lights and just have the candles on, you know. And at that place at those places that I was going, I think at the homeless halfway house, I think they were like battery operated candles. You know, I can't even remember. Maybe I think they just turned off the lights, and the lights on the outside were on. Maybe they didn't have candles there. I can't remember. There was just a big candle in the middle or something. I don't even remember. But isn't that funny? But I can remember sitting in those meetings. They were always so spiritual, and you know, be snowing outside, and some nights there'd be 5 of us, and other nights there'd be 40 of us, and sometimes there'd be people in there that have been sober for less than 24 hours, sharing and sitting right next to people that had 40 years of sobriety, you know, and it was incredible. And I loved that period of my life. Really needed that period of my life. And that was like when my marriage, like that was a big part of my marriage. Like going into those meetings was when my marriage was falling apart. And you know, the man at that time that was my sponsor, he and we worked together for like 2 years. I talked to him not too long ago, a couple months now. He called me, and we were talking, and I just like broke down on the phone, and I said, you know, like, I don't know that and I don't know what I meant by this when I said it, but I think I meant like from a drugging point of view. But I said, you know, like, I don't know that I would be here right now if it wasn't for you. Like, he really got me through that, and really got me to work on myself, and encouraged me to, you know, want the best life I possibly could have. And yeah, it was just, I'm forever grateful for him. We were really good friends too. just, it's so crazy to me sometimes when I like thinking about my sobriety is such a huge part of my life. But like when I think about the people that I've met and I think about like all this, I really, really wish that like you guys could really see like a day in my life as far as a recovering person, the phone calls and the things, helping somebody, whatever, like people that have helped me and, just the interactions. I wish like, and obviously I can't for anonymity reasons, but like I really wish I could just show you that, because I think like it's one thing to just say like, oh, I've been sober for 26.5 years, and it's another thing to see what working a program really looks like. And I mean, there's people out there that work the program of recovery 100 times better than I do. But like there's a lot of sadness that goes along with it too. There's, one of the things about being sober for a long time is that you have the blessings of being able to see somebody come into the rooms of recovery. And it's amazing, right? But like at the same time, they don't always stay there. They don't always stay sober, or sometimes it takes them 20 times to get sober, or 40 times, Sometimes they come in and you get real attached. This happens to me all the time. You get really, really attached to somebody and they go back out, and sometimes you get real attached to people and they die. Or they stop caring about themselves, and it's hard, because I think that was one of the things that was so hard for me watching that movie, that 4 Days movie, is, as addicts and alcoholics, we're so selfish and self-centered. I mean, we talk about the root of our diseases. Our disease is rooted in selfishness and self-centeredness, and that's true, right? But at the same time, we're like, when we're in active addiction, we're like extremely selfish and self-centered people that don't really care about ourselves at all. Like, it's the weirdest thing. And like we're all we care about without caring about ourselves and our well-being. And it's really hard to have friends that you care about deeply, who then just like on a drop of a dime one day, they just like, you're talking to them and they go back out and you're talking to them, and it's just like, yeah, I don't care. I don't care. I don't care about this. I don't care about, and it's just like, last week we were just having a cup of coffee, and there was so much hope. And it's hard. So it's a double-edged sword, because I feel very blessed that I'm not complacent anymore about my recovery, and that I surround myself with enough people that are new, that I realize, that could be me. I mean, I could go back out. I don't know that I'd make it back in. I honestly don't know that I would make it back in if I went back out. That fear is one of the things. Like, so many people ask me, they're like, why do you keep on going to go to meetings, and why do you keep on working with a sponsor and whatever, and it's because like that's our medicine. And the thing is that like, I was telling my sponsor this when we went to the meeting together last. I said, it's hard sometimes having gotten sober as young as I did, and there's people now that are getting sober much younger than me, but at that time there weren't a lot of people that were getting sober at 22, 23 years old. There was a handful of us, and I said, one of the things that's hard about getting sober as young as I did is that from time to time I question, like, maybe I'm not an alcoholic or an addict, like it's been so long. But then the reality is, if I'm not an alcoholic or an addict, like if I don't know, right, because I want to have a beer on the beach, or I want to have a glass of wine with my husband, or whatever, even get drunk one night, like, is that really worth me losing everything in my life for? Because the moment that having a beer on the beach means so much to me, that I'm willing to even like question that I might be willing to like risk or give up everything that I have in my life, that alone should indicate to me that I'm an alcoholic and an addict. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know if that makes sense, what I'm saying, but like, I never explained this right. The moment that I need, like, that my needing to have a beer on the beach is more important than everything that I have in my life of any kind of quality, Because I think, well, maybe I'm not an alcoholic. Well, what if I am, you know? And that's the other thing, too. It's like, you know, when people say to me, like, well, you know, like, my wife or my husband is sober, or like my child's sober, or grandchild, or, you know, husband, wife, or sister, or whatever, does that mean that I can't drink around them? And I'm like, in early sobriety, like, I don't think you probably should, you know, if you really care about that person and love those people. And I was the one that needed to say that to people if I was uncomfortable with people drinking, because people didn't know, you know, but that was my job to say that to people. Like, I'm not comfortable being around drinking, or to remove myself from the situation, you know. But my loved ones, when I first got sober, they knew not to drink around me and stuff. They knew that that was hard for me. And, you know, and so I always say to people, like, if you have a loved one that you're around or that lives in your home and you can't stop drinking or smoking weed or using or whatever, you know, because they'll say, I can't even have a beer in my own house because of so-and-so getting sober. Well, if you having a beer or a 6-pack of beer in your refrigerator is so important to you over this person's sobriety, maybe you need to check your own addiction issues. That's what I always say to people, you know. I'm not saying that you're an addict or an alcoholic, but maybe take a look at that, you know. If your need to have a beer or a margarita or whatever is so important over this person's well-being, because to this person, one beer might be enough to kill them. Seriously, you know. I'm like, that's why I'm like real big on the whole thing. Like, you know, I always say, like, when people, there's so many things that you can come for somebody on, but if you come for their addiction and you call them names, right? Like, I don't care if they're actively using or they're not actively using and they're sober or whatever, right? Like, I don't care. If you come for somebody, like, about their addiction stuff, like, you are basically wishing death on them, is how I feel about it. Because if that person picks up again, you know, like, and no, nobody's responsible for that. I'm responsible for my own recovery, right? But if you're a person that pushes somebody into that, like, saying those things or whatever, it's like, you know, calling them like crackhead or, you know, whatever, it's like, okay, like, you really think so lowly of that person that it's okay for you to call them that like, you're really, like, and saying really derogatory things about somebody. Or the worst is, like, when I, you know, heard people say things like, well, why don't you just go back out there and, you know, smoke a crack pipe or do that? And I'm like, that could be that person's death. Like, do you realize that? Like, you're wishing death on that person. Like, I don't take that stuff lightly, and I don't understand it. I really don't. It's whatever. I mean, people couldn't say it to me and it really wouldn't have any effect on me today. I mean, I stay sober today for me. But, you know, when I first got sober, that stuff could have sent me over the edge to hear that. My first couple years of sobriety, you know, I mean, I didn't take lightly to those words. I just didn't, whether there was truth in them or not. I didn't take lightly to them. Like, those were fighting words for me. Those were offensive words for me when people, if they called me those names in the past, you know? So, I don't know. I feel like we kind of, addiction is like this weird thing in recovery. It's like, or addiction and recovery, it's like, there's no, like, we don't teach people, like, how to talk about it, you know, and there's a stigma attached to it that, you know, so it's like, there's this great scene in the movie 4 Days where, like, Mila Kunis is smoking a cigarette in the garage, and, like, she says, open the garage door, and her mom opens the garage door, and then these, like, women are walking by, and they're like, hi, how are you? And then they kind of, like, put their hands down when they see her standing there, Mila Kunis. And it's like, there's, like, such a stigma that people are so afraid of it. You know, it's like, we need to destigmatize that and start talking about it. We need to destigmatize mental health and be talking about it, you know, openly and honestly, and not be afraid to talk about it. You know, it's like, we're so afraid to talk about it. And, I don't know, it just, you know, there's a lot of sadness that goes along with it, but there's a lot of hope and happiness that goes along with it too, you know? I mean, just every time I, you know, go to a meeting, it's like I see one of my friends, you know, celebrate a birthday, which is amazing, you know? And, so there's that too, and I think that hope needs to be reminded of as well. That, I mean, I could sit, and I do often talk about the sadness that comes along with addiction, but there's a hell of a lot of hope. I have a life beyond my wildest dreams. My old sponsor used to say that. I took that from him. But I do. I have a life beyond my wildest dreams as a result of my sobriety, you know, and I don't take that lightly. Everything that I have in my life today, from my husband to my dogs to my house to my being able to make YouTube videos to my relationship with my family to my relationship with my father, you know, most importantly probably, because that's the thing that was the most affected back then in my life, you know, to all of it. Like, everything that I have in my life today is directly related to my sobriety, and all of the good things that I have in my life are directly related to my sobriety. Being able to celebrate 10 years of marriage. Do you think that would be possible if I wasn't sober? There's no way, you know? And, I mean, addicts and alcoholics are literally like bulls in china shops. Like, we ruin everything in our way, and not meaning to, you know? That's just what we do. The amount of people that I have seen come in and get sober that now have, you know, 20 plus years or 15 years or 7 years, or I've had a friend of mine celebrate, I think 8 or 9 years of sobriety, 2 of them back to back. One week was like 9, the next week it was like 8. And I've known them since they, like, well, one of them I've known since he walked into the rooms. I, you know, remember his very first meetings. And, you know, it's cool to be able to see that, and to see them get careers back and relationships and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. But it's important also for us to remember that, you know, like my dad said to me one time, like, I can't remember what I said to him, but it was basically like I needed a pat on the back kind of moment. And my dad said, you want pats on the back you want a pat on the back for just getting to where everybody else is and doing what everybody else is doing in life. Like, you being sober is just getting to where everybody else, I mean, my dad's proud of me. I mean, he tells me that, you know, and stuff like that. But he was like, we were kind of like in an argument or something, I think. This was years ago. And he was like, you want like a pat on the back or accolade for doing what everybody else is doing? He was like, you know, it's hard because my dad was the person that was the most affected by my addiction, you know, and then, I don't know, it's a good life, it's a great life, and there's so much that comes along with it too, you know. I was talking about this last night, that like, so, it's hard because like last night I was talking about how very little of it has to do with the drink or the drug, that in the first step is the only place that like alcohol or drugs are mentioned. That being said, it's an important reminder that we only have a daily reprieve, and I'm just a drink away. I mean, when you think about this is crazy. I'm just a sip, you know, or a toke or whatever away from my life being complete disruption again. Like, that's a really scary thought, you know? Especially if you're not a person that lives with that, because it doesn't really make sense to somebody that, I mean, I have friends of mine that have been friends of mine for a very long time, that know I'm sober, that ask a lot of questions. They ask the right questions, and they still don't get it, because they're not an addict or an alcoholic, you know? And it's like for me, the way I explain it to people is, you know, like my stepmom, we would go on trips, right? And my stepmom would have like a couple glasses of wine or whatever, you know, a couple fun drinks or whatever. But then at like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, she would start drinking Diet Coke. And I would be like, I don't understand. And she would be like, well, I don't want to ruin tomorrow. I don't want to be hungover or anything like that. And I'm like, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Why you would stop? Like, where's your buzz? You know, there's your buzz goes away. Like, why would you stop? And she'd be like, well, I don't want to ruin tomorrow. Like, that makes no sense to me whatsoever. To this day, okay? I get it. Like, in theory, I understand why people do that, and I understand why people just choose to not drink because they don't, you know, whatever. But the alcoholic in me does not understand that at all, you know? like when friends would say to me back in the day, like, I mean, the danger aspect of it to me today, I mean, that comes along, I think, a little bit with maturity as well. You know, I think that when I got sober, I didn't have the emotional development that I needed, and over time that, like, grew. But, like, I can remember, like, friends of mine that would, like, this is after I got sober, would be on, like, painkillers for something, right? And I'd be like, this is, like, years after I got sober. I mean, I got it in theory, but, like, inside of me, like, I didn't understand it as an addict or an alcoholic. And they would say, oh, I'm not drinking tonight. Well, why not? Well, I'm on this painkiller, you know, because of my back or teeth or something. And I'm like, huh? Well, you're not supposed to drink on painkillers. I'm like, huh? That was the best time, you know, for me. I just, you know what I'm saying? It's like, or friends of mine that, like, back in the day, like, would stop smoking pot at some point because they were so high or so stoned, and I'm like, just keep on smoking. You know, it's just like, I didn't know where to stop. Yeah, I was a mess. That's why, like, when I said to my dad, you know, a couple years ago when we went to dinner or lunch for my birthday, and I said, like, if I hadn't stopped using, where do you think? And I didn't even get the sentence out, and he said, you would be dead. And I said, do you really think so? He goes, oh, without a shadow of a doubt, you would be dead. Without a doubt. I think he said, without a doubt, you would be dead. I said, really? He said, oh, yeah. But see, we don't really see ourselves. Like, I've had friends of mine, I've known people that have, like, been recorded when they're using, and so then they get to see it. You know, I mean, I think today with, like, phones and stuff, it's probably different, but, like, I never saw video footage of myself, like, wasted. Like, I only have images in my head of what that was like, which I'm sure are not true. Or I had, like, people tell me stories the next day, and I, at some point, was like, I can remember that last year, people would want to tell me, no, I don't want to know what I did don't tell me what I did last night. I don't need to know last night, you know? I didn't want to hear it. And it wasn't all bad. I mean, some of it was funny, but it was never really that funny, you know, from the point of view of, like, ruining your life. I don't know. But I think it's also important, and that's why I like, show my life, and I want people to know that we're not a glum lot. Like, that's a saying in recovery, we're not a glum lot. I mean, we have fun, you know, and there's a lot of people that are really, really successful out there that are sober today. It stopped. Anyway, I was talking about friends of mine that, you know, like, I don't know when it stopped because I wasn't looking at it, but, you know, friends of mine that didn't graduate from high school, and they ended up going to get, like, their GED and going to college and going to, some of them, graduate school and getting great jobs, or jobs that they, you know, feel passionate about or love, at least. You know, jobs that pay bills. That's something, you know, we don't talk about enough. That's a big deal, right? And they have relationships and kids, and, or if not, they have their own apartment or their own house, you know, and they have repaired relationships with their family members, some of them, and, you know, some of them, they're still working on it. And this person is, like, has their phone, and what is going on? I'm confused. Anyway, you know, they have amazing lives today that they would never have had they kept using. And I'm blessed enough to be able to say I'm one of those people, you know? And a day doesn't go by that I forget that today. But I think there was a period of time where I just was like, yeah, I'm sober. Yeah, I'm sober. And I said it, but I don't know that I really got what it meant, you know? And one of the things that Tanya and I talk a lot about is that recovery is a gift, you know? Sobriety is a gift. There are people out there that will never be introduced to sobriety or recovery. You know, since I've been recording this, so it's 10:25. I started recording this at 20. It's been 45 minutes. You know, they say that every 8 or 9, I think it's every 9 minutes, a heroin addict dies in our country. 5 heroin addicts have died since I've been recording this. Think about that for a second. 5 heroin addicts have died in this country since I've been recording this. That is really sad. 5 lives. 5 futures, 5 fathers, 5 mothers, 5 artists, 5 attorneys, 5 chefs, 5, you know, whatever they dreamed of for their futures, you know? Lives taken too soon. So, I try to turn that into putting one foot in front of the other and doing whatever I can to stay sober today. You know, like, I can remember like all the Scared Straight programs back in the day. Do you guys remember that, when they would, like, you know, try to like scare kids into staying sober and whatever? And I'm not a big believer that works. Didn't work for me, you know. But that was like a big deal back when I was like in high school and college and stuff. And it's like, it didn't work for me then, but there's a certain amount of it that works for me today. I think a lot of fear of what my life would look like if I went back to using again. You know, that I really would have no life. And so I think to some degree, like, that whole Scared Straight thing does work for me, you know, because I'm so terrified to lose what I have today. And I don't know. Did you hear my stomach? My stomach is growling. Yeah, but I don't want to lose that, you know. I don't want to lose my life and all the good things that are in it. That's one of the reasons why I don't like being around people that are like heavily drinking, like spending a night with them. And I'll tell you why, because you don't know where the night is going to end. And that's something that I always felt like with my mom. Like, when she was drinking, I didn't know, like, when she would pass out, or, you know, when the night would be just over or whatever. And I have to say, from a very young age, that was something that, like, when my mom finally did go to bed or pass out, I felt safer, which is so crazy. I don't know if anybody else relates to that, but I felt safer once my mom was, like, in bed and passed out, because I knew that the night was over. Whether that meant me cleaning up the kitchen and throwing all the, you know, alcohol away and whatever, like, I felt safer once my mom had, I mean, I think of that as being crazy. I remember one Christmas when the irony hit me. But anyway, I always felt safer when my mom was, like, finally asleep and in bed or passed out, you know, on the nights that she was drinking really heavy. But I also remember this one Christmas when the irony, like, hit me, and it was like Christmas Eve or something. I don't know. I thought I was in high school, but I might have been like 18 or 19 at the time. I don't remember. But my mom and I took this walk, because we would take walks a lot on Christmas Eve, and then we would come back and she would watch the Pope at the midnight mass, Christmas mass the Pope did at the Vatican. And I remember like, she kept on falling on the ice, like she couldn't stand up. And so then when we got home, she, like, went to bed because she was, like, so drunk. And I can remember standing there in the kitchen, and my aunt and uncle had been over there, like, you know, I think, like, would Caroline have been married by that point? No, because I was sober when Caroline got married. So it was like my aunt and uncle and Caroline. And I don't know who else would have been there, but I feel like there was somebody else there. I don't know. Every once in a while, my aunt would bring somebody she worked with that didn't have, like, family for Christmas and stuff. So, I feel like my car is pulling. I have felt like that for, like, the last, well, before I left on vacation and now, but, everybody left, you know, it was, like, late at night. It was, like, 1 o'clock in the morning at this point, and I can remember I was standing in the kitchen, and I was so pissed at my mom, and so I was, like, cleaning out these, like, all the wine glasses and stuff, and cocktail glasses that were out, and I literally was sitting there, like, as I was cleaning this stuff in the sink, I was, like, these glasses and whatever, you know, to put them in the dishwasher, I was, like, sitting there, like, drinking the leftover wine in these glasses, and I was getting blitzed too, and I was like, this is like, this, I used to like, on Christmas Eve, I can remember my mom would get real drunk, I would pour the alcohol down the drain, because I was so pissed, and then flash forward, here I am, and I'm drinking all the alcohol, because I'm so pissed, you know, it's like, the switch in me, and just the irony of it. The irony of it all, so to speak. I can remember like thinking that, like, this is just like, okay, this is ironic. So you've been pissed at her for drinking all these years. Now you're drinking the leftover wine while you're sitting there cleaning, you know, and I do look back though on a lot of it, like, you know, like I had a very magical, when my mom was good, she was very good, you know, and there were tons and tons of days where my mom was just like this, you know, magical mother and whatever. But I can also remember like young, like I wasn't like, not 6, but like junior high, early high school, I can remember stealing cigarettes from my mom and smoking them when she wasn't there, because I mean, she smoked inside anyway, so I could smoke a cigarette in the house and throw it in the fireplace and she wouldn't know. And then drinking, like, you know, if she had like a bottle or something, like drinking out of it or whatever. I mean, I can remember that. It's like so weird to me. I look back on that and it's almost kind of like it never happened. It's like, it's so long ago, and it's kind of like, it's bizarre. You know, so when you ask me, like, about predisposition of addiction, if you're somebody that would ask about, like, since you asked, did you ask? Like, that's where I believe in it, because, like, what 12-year-old, you know, or 11-year-old or whatever is sitting there, like, smoking and listening to, like, Simon and Garfunkel, you know, like, in our library, like, just sitting there, like, having, I mean, I drank, like, at 11 or 12, like, I was 40. I mean, it was weird, you know? Yet another good example of, you know, we're not bad people getting good, we're sick people getting well, because when my mom was drinking, like, she was a mess, you know, and she said hurtful things, and, but mostly the way that my mom was when she was drunk was she was just a mess. There were a few times, like, through the years, like, maybe, like, 3 times, I mean, honestly, 3 times in, like, the entirety of my growing up that I remember her being belligerent, or, like, and that Christmas I always talk about is one of them. But other than that, like when my dad was there, but usually my mom just was like, she became very zombie-ish, which is probably why I had that nightmare for so long. You know, she just became very zombie-ish and would just, like, you know, pass out in bed. And that was how she was. Like, she just was, she drank a lot and then she passed out. Like, she wasn't a mean drunk. Like, I don't remember her being mean. I just remember being scared a lot, you know, like, I didn't know. And I also remember being, and I don't know why this, I almost kind of wonder if I saw a movie or something, but I always remember, like, as a young kid, that my mom was going to die. Like, I was afraid of my mom, and my dad would never have said that. Like, he would never have said to me, like, your mom's going to die from this. So it wasn't like I got it from my dad. But I can remember, like, on the weekends that I wasn't with her, calling her, and she would be, like, completely wasted, intoxicated. Like, where she hardly remembered the phone call the next day. And then the next day when I would talk to her, she would be, like, super apologetic. And she'd be like, you know, Mom loves you. I'm so sorry. You know, I should never have been drinking last. And she was very honest with me, you know, like, as a young kid. You know, she'd say, I was 8 or 10. And she'd say, you know, I shouldn't have been drinking like that and talking to you on the phone. I'm so sorry. I don't want you to be worried about me, you know. And I don't know if maybe my dad would have called her and talked to her first and said, you know, like, you really scared him last night. I don't know, you know. But I can remember she would say that to me. It wasn't like we just didn't acknowledge my mom's drinking. Like, my mom's drinking was talked about. And, I mean, there were periods where she tried to, like, stay sober. And she would write it down on a calendar, like, how many days she had stayed sober and all this kind of stuff. You know, but don't ever give up hope, because the battery is dying, so I got to wrap this up. But don't ever give up hope, and I'm 5 minutes late to getting Tanya, too, because I went too far. But don't ever give up hope, because my mom got sober at 51. And if you had asked her at the end of her life, she would have said that those last years were the best years that she ever had, because she said that to me so many times, you know. And we had a relationship like none other at the end. We had a relationship that we would never have had she not got sober. So for the still suffering alcoholic and addict out there, I love you, and please get some help. You deserve it, and you deserve to have a life beyond your wildest dreams. And so, you know, anyway. Oh, I love you, Mom. We had good years together at the end. I'm so happy about that. And as much as I wish we had had more, we had really good years, and I'm really happy about that. So, all right, you guys, I'm gonna get off here now because the battery is dying, and I'm about to pick up Tanya Jean. So I'm gonna get off here, and if nobody else has told you this today, I love you, and I hope that you guys are having a magically amazing Tuesday. Do something fun for yourself. Do something for yourself today. Do something that will make your life better today. One small step towards your future. One small step towards what you want your life to look like, I guess. And I want the best for you, all of you out there. And I want you guys to have that. And do something today that will make your life better down the road. Or even closer down the road, I don't know. Anyway, I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Love ya! And before it dies on me, I'm gonna say, it's like flashing at me, the battery, the red battery. I wanna say to you guys out there, before it dies, one more I love you. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Love ya!